Hello everyone! Grounded is one of those rare games that manages to strike a perfect balance between charm, challenge, and creativity. From its incredibly detailed world, to crafting, satisfying combat, and immersive base building, the game is truly packed with features that keep players coming back for more. Now, as much as the game already gets right, it also inspires us to dream about what could come next, what else should be added to this already great game. And that is the purpose of today's video. We're going to discuss 20 total features that were either already in Grounded and I want to see carried over to Grounded 2, features I would like to see reworked in Grounded 2, or simply just new features entirely that I think would be a great addition to the game. And this feature is my personal favorite for any survival game, and my absolute favorite things about Grounded is the auto hot deposit and crafting by pulling items directly from nearby storage items. It's just one of those things that's extremely tedious in survival games, and we want to spend our time surviving and fighting and exploring and not navigating countless menus. Now, next up is base building, the ability to place down blueprints and plan an idea for a build before ever actually making it. This helps in two major ways. First is visually. It lets you see what the build looks like prior to actually building it and spending the time farming the resources for it. And speaking of the resources you need, it actually gives you a shopping list for every single resource you need down to the exact amount. Now, it could be slightly enhanced, which will bring me to feature number 3, and that's the handy net. I love and I hate the handy net. As a builder, it's an amazing tool and allows you to easily plot out large-scale builds. Now here's where there's an opportunity. If you can make a large-scale build with blueprints, it can be quite a challenge to get to the higher levels up when you're just on the ground or earlier in the game. However, if you have the handy net, you can easily do that, but the handy net in Grounded 1 was locked behind New Game Plus. Now, I don't know for sure if New Game Plus will even be in Grounded 2, but I feel like the handy net should be accessible the moment you beat the final mission in the base game. You should not have to leave the base game, because realistically, all we're really going to use it for is either scouting potential areas once you've already beat the game, or potentially just being able to be creative and build large-scale bases. Now, speaking of base building, let's discuss coziness. I really like the concept, but I hate the execution. What I like about it is that the progression that is involved with it. As you go through and craft newer high-tier craftable items, which are ones you get from completing major milestones in the game, your base just gets stronger. So basically, they nailed tying story progression into base building progression. It's near perfect. But what's not perfect is how the buff actually works. Coziness buffs your hunger rate, your thirst rate, and your healing, which basically means you only have those buffs when you're hanging out at your base. And if you already have a 5-star coziness level, then you're probably not building too much more, because you have to be in such a small radius anyway to even get that buff in the first place. Now, when it comes to healing, the only other thing that would apply to is raids. But again, you have to be in a very specific location, so overall the whole radius thing just did not work. If they're going to improve upon this, you just get it while you're within that radius, and then it lasts for a certain duration after you leave that radius. Now, speaking of raids, let's talk about those. These are a loved and hated feature. Primarily, I think it's a hated feature though, and games like The Forest actually do it incredibly well. However, in Grounded, raiding or the revenge system feels inconsistent. In some circumstances, you can kill 3 bugs and you'll trigger a raid, and other times you can kill 50 bugs in the same or small duration of time and you will not trigger a raid. It is really inconsistent. Now, the reason this is a problem is because of base building. Many people want to build cool, fun, and elaborate bases, but if they're constantly worried that they're going to get raided, they're going to be less likely to spend time building because, well, they're probably going to be scared they're going to lose their progress in their base and all their hard work they put in and have everything destroyed during the raid. I just feel like raids need to be more consistent on what triggers it, and the player should actually be aware of how and when to trigger it, and this would allow us to actually control the raids. There doesn't need to be a surprise element behind raids. Raids are fun, and you should even be able to plan for them. Now, on the same topic of raids, let's talk about defending a base. I would love to see many new different trap items added to the game. Right now, we're really limited on what we can use, and with the weird raiding system, it just wasn't a lot of fun. I would love it if it was things like Save the World from Fortnite, or in the forest where there's waves of enemies that come in. You can plan for it, build choke points, build kill tunnels. Right now, it more seems like you have to go out there, you take your sword or your weapon, and you have to do all the fighting. Your traps and your fences are very weak, they're not that great, it's just not fun. And I want to be sieged. I want to get attacked, but I want it to be fun. So if we can get cool additions added using bug parts like barricades or blockades using ladybug shells, or creating a wall with webs to slow down enemies, or maybe even bug zappers to stun enemies and other options like that. Our teens are 2 years older now. They're a heck of a lot smarter and I'm sure far more inventive. Now, next up is the combat system. We know it's got a complete overhaul in Grounded 2, and for me personally, it was the absolute most satisfying thing in Grounded. It was the fact that your skill played a part in your success. A lot of games use bullet sponges or some weird mechanic to make creatures hard, and this is primarily why I didn't like New Game Plus. But Grounded is all about memorizing attack patterns and perfecting your timing. You can easily fight some of the toughest creatures in the game with the lowest tier of weapons and armor in the game if you practice enough. You're not forced to grind out the rarest, most powerful gear if you don't want to. Then on top of that, it's all about gathering info. You can use a creature's weaknesses against it. I really enjoyed how one weapon wasn't supposed to be used the entire time. They pushed you to make and upgrade multiple weapons and multiple builds, as it's far easier to defeat creatures when using weapons or elements that they are weak to. And now in Grounded 2, we know there's going to be a kind of dance in combat, blocking certain bug attacks, having some of your attacks be blocked by the bugs, having to use a heavy attack to break through those blocks, then having to use your dodge to roll to avoid certain attacks. Now my only ask for combat, because it was near perfect in Grounded 1 and all these changes look amazing, is just simply try to balance the weapons slightly more, as obviously some were far more viable in Grounded 1 and others were just frankly crap. Now, speaking of multiple weapons, let's discuss loadouts. In Grounded 1, there was loadouts, and those loadouts allowed you to swap between mutations without ever needing to go into your menu, as they were available on the radio wheel, which meant you could easily swap between resource gathering, exploration, or even combat mutations on the fly. However, the one downside is that even though you could change your mutations, you couldn't change your gear like this. And more often than not, you would have gear that's tailored to a specific mutation set. For example, if you're gathering planks, you're probably using things like the pupa hat or the red ant armor. Or if you're exploring, you're probably using the aphid slippers. So in Grounded 2, I would like to see some changes made. First is to have an entire loadout, and when you swap between them, it swaps not only your mutations, but also all your equipped items. So your armor, your trinket, and your weapon. That'd be huge. Now, another way this could be done, if it's not going to be done through the same mutation loadout menu, is at least allowing us to quick swap armor with an armor dummy at our base. Currently, we can only swap one piece at a time, and it would just be nice if all the gear could easily be swapped in and out, as we possibly come back from exploration and then gear up for combat. Now let's discuss recipes. The exploration in Grounded feels truly satisfying. There's always something to collect. Maybe you want a scabby to change the color of your menu, or maybe you're looking for milk molars to grant your character upgrades, or maybe it's even a secret recipe that is needed to be found in order to summon a specific boss, or even craft a cool weapon. I 100% want to see more recipes hidden all throughout the park. The exploration factor in this game is top tier because exploration rewards your curiosity. So yes, please, please, please add more recipes or cool events like the spicy Sultana event. All of those things really stood out in Grounded, and they just mixed up the formula for exploration. Alright, now at this point in time, we're about halfway through the list, so if you are enjoying the video, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing for future Grounded 2 content. Also, I will be streaming Grounded 2 on day 1. I just made a Twitch channel, as for some reason the Xbox Series X cannot stream directly to YouTube, so head on over and leave a follow on the Twitch channel if you want to watch me live. The link will be in the pinned comment and in the description. Now let's move on over to number 11, and on the topic of bosses, let's discuss the story. Grounded does have a set story, and in some senses, it does limit your progression because it locks certain recipes behind ships within certain labs behind certain bosses. But what I like is that technically you're able to do whatever you wanted. You could follow the story if you wanted, but at the same time, if you wanted to turn off the haze, or if you wanted to go through and explore all the way into the upper yard, you could do that without doing any part of the story. You could go through and collect tier 3 weapons, build some of the best gear in the game, and not complete a single mission in the story. You couldn't build everything. You certainly could not build an elaborate base if you don't go through and unlock all the chips, and there'd be some upgrades, of course, like you can't fully upgrade your gear till you progress in the story, but you can at least explore the yard for the most part without feeling limited or stuck by the story, and I really liked that freedom. Now my only concern with this style of progression is the new Omni tool in Grounded 2. You see, you could make tier 3 items like the termite axe simply by just playing the game and farming termites early on if you wanted. Now having this tool, I'm worried it's going to be tied to story elements, and you'll be forced to go through and complete certain objectives before you could actually harvest some of the top tier upgrades. Now I hope it's not like that. I hope it's more tied to goals like defeating certain bugs, discovering certain areas, similar to mutations. I still hope we'll have the freedom to explore the yard as we want, and then complete the stories when we actually want to. Now the next one is not a major one, but something I personally would like to see added. Finding every single milk molar and mega milk molar across the yard was no easy feat, especially the first time around. And even on subsequent runs, it was still easy to forget a few locations. So I think having a clearly visible report card in your menu, or maybe even a computer screen in the main lab that shows how many of each collectible you would have would just be a cool feature to have. Now next up is weird mechanics. So for example, if you defeat a bug with a spicy weapon, you would get cooked meat, or when using a salty weapon, you get jerky. Random weird mechanics like that. For example, we should be able to use a mint weapon, maybe to make the meat not spoil as quickly, or if you use a sour weapon, maybe the meat will spoil right away, making it easier to farm spoiled meat. I want to see more of these random weird details and mechanics in Grounded 2. Now let's discuss the daytime and the nighttime cycles and weather. I really enjoyed how the time of the day would influence certain aspects of the yard. Wolf spiders would sleep during the day, glow bugs would be invisible during the day, gnats would be at the pond during the day, but then at night, wolf spiders would patrol and they would hunt, looking for players. Glow bugs are actually visible at night, and gnats would gravitate to the lamp specifically because that's what they do in real life, allowing you to easily see them and actually farm them for meat if you so choose. I want to see more of that, more cycles and how it actually affects the creature behavior. Also for weather, I don't expect rain because I feel like a raindrop would literally splatter the player and we would no longer exist, so I feel like that might be extreme. But if the sky just simply changed colors, maybe we had some clouds, just more dynamic lighting. It does look like there's some pretty cool lighting already based on what we've seen. Maybe even wind, but maybe if it's windy with the map being so large, if we jumped off a cliff and had a dandelion tuft or new ways to glide, maybe we could actually use the wind to transport us across the map so we don't actually have to build something every single time. I think that'd be a pretty cool feature. Now let's talk pets. I really like that we can have pets in the game, and I hope to see the feature brought back in Grounded 2. However, I would like to see some certain changes made to the pets. First, please do not let it bump me off the edge and just fall off the cliff, because that was frustrating as can be. But I also think it'd be cool if they had an AoE pickup ability. They could pick up any resource that was already harvested or bug parts from defeated creatures in a small radius around you, and this could vary based upon the pet that you were using. And worst case, if that wasn't possible, just let them pick up arrows. Don't immediately put them back in the player's inventory because I feel like that would be overpowered. Make it where you have to actually access their inventory to get these arrows, or you have to go into your menu to access their inventory, so that way you're not getting your arrows back mid-fight and it's not unfair, so you actually still have to craft X amount to defeat a creature, but just to save you time for having to gather them after the fight, that would be a huge quality of life update. Now to end this off, I want to say I want a pet bee. I know they're bigger than us, and at one point they might even be a rideable buggy, but the bee is hands down the cutest creature in the game, and just having a cute little version of it flying around with me sounds pretty cool. So Obsidian, can we get a cute flying creature, because the gnat just doesn't do it for me. Now another feature I want to see make a return is repair glue. High level gear that wears down over time simply by using it is not new in survival games, but Grounded makes the process of fixing your gear very smart. You do not have to regrind the exact same rare materials over and over. Instead, you just craft glue from a variety of resources, some of which are pretty common, which means you're encouraged to keep exploring rather than backtracking for a very specific resource. Now another feature I want to see make a return is the duper, the ability to duplicate rare items and give players the freedom to choose what's worth saving for or what is not is huge. Early on, those choices felt like big decisions and they were exciting to work towards. You could take your time and grind out all the materials you want, or you could spend your hard-earned precious raw science to simply duplicate the item. Now coming at number 18, and this one is huge, and it is up there, and Grounded does not have it, and it is one of my most requested features, and that is please give us a no-HUD option. I know we have a camera mode, it's not great, and everything freezes during it in a single player world, and there is no way on console to change this. Please just let us turn the HUD off. If you have the volume on, audio cues can guide you along the way. You'll hear the perfect parry animations. You'll hear when you get hit. You'll know when you're hungry, when you're thirsty, when you need to heal. You can now see bugs fight it out. You can go through and have epic fights with wolf spiders and see the entire thing and not have your screen cluttered with the HUD all the time. I 100% would not play with the HUD off all the time, but if I want to turn it off and feel more immersed, I want the option to do that. Now that brings me over to number 19, which is my biggest criticism for Grounded as a whole, and that is the lack of randomization. I know this is present in New Game Plus, but I don't think basic things like random routes or spawns should be tied to New Game Plus. Now I'm actually okay if the routes stay the same if another change is made, because I liked learning the routes. I liked learning where the bugs were. You became more familiar with the game and it was less scary. But at the same time, new events would be cool. Have bug turf wars, bugs fighting it out, so you have active events that are happening on the map, whether that's based on the weather, time, randomization, random cool events. would be really, really cool. And even if there's no randomization with bug spawns, it would still add additional things to look forward to. Maybe there's feeding zones. Maybe they're harvesting over food that is dropped down. Maybe there's something that's in the yard that's agitating them. Different events that can happen, not tying to any form of progression, but just randomization. It'll throw you off, and maybe you had a plan to go explore a certain part of the yard, but then suddenly this event is taking place, and having that randomization is really nice because it keeps things fresh and it keeps things exciting. And as a worst case scenario, if none of those things can be done at all, please just give us a setting in the main menu prior to starting a new world that allows us to randomize the bug spawns, so every single playthrough could feel fresh and new if you wanted it to. Now lastly, in at number 20 is the ability to exchange resources at a shop or a terminal. Because let's be honest, some of us probably had 300, 400, 500 ant parts, or boiling glands, or spider parts. There were certain creatures we just farmed more than others, so if we could trade those in for parts that we maybe would have far less of, that would certainly be a nice quality of life change. Now I will say though, in order to do this, I think it would be an end game process as well, maybe once you beat the final mission, and once you've acquired that initial part the very first time. You would have had to have acquired it at least once in order for it to be actually an option to be tradable. Now lastly is a bonus feature, and one that might be a hot topic, is the ability to automate just a little bit of things in Grounded. Not because it's needed, but because it's fun in survival games. If you want to build or grow items at your base, maybe let our Weevil or our pets do some of the work. Maybe they can put in the fertilizer, or maybe they can help take the resource that's already ready and put it in a chest for us. And I think it'd be a great way to make our pets have even more utility. Maybe one stays at base and they go through and help our base out by keeping our structures repaired. Maybe they do our farming for us. Anything like that would be really, really cool. Now I am curious, what's your thoughts? Do you agree with anything I just said, or do you have your own ideas? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you all later.